Dear viewers, welcome to the course Data Structure and Applications. This is session 6 of Module 1. This session covers polynomials and sparse matrices. Let us start with polynomials. A polynomial is a sum of terms of the form a into x to the power of e, where a is a coefficient, x is a variable, and e is an exponent. For example, let us take two polynomial a of x is equal to 3x to the power of 20 plus 2x to the power of 5 plus 4, and b of x is equal to x to the power of 4 plus 10x to the power of 3 plus 3x square plus 1. In these two polynomial, a is an exponent, x is a variable, and 20 is the exponent. A is a coefficient, here it is 3, x is a variable and 20 is an exponent, plus here with respect to this term 2 is a coefficient, x is a variable, 5 is an exponent, plus with respect to this term 4 is a coefficient, x is a variable and exponent is 0. So you know that the term with an exponent 0, you are going to show only the coefficient here, only the coefficient. So here as for the definition of a polynomial, it is a sum of terms. There are 3 terms in the first polynomial and 4 terms in the second polynomial. 4 terms in the second polynomial. In the second polynomial, coefficient is 1 here and x, and 4 is the exponent. 10 is a coefficient, x is a variable, 3 is an exponent. Here with respect to this, 3 is a coefficient, x is a variable, 2 is an exponent. 1 is a coefficient, x, and 0 is the exponent here. Okay, so one thing you should keep in mind is that with respect to the term of a polynomial, x is a commonly available term, that is a variable. Variable is a commonly available things with a polynomial, and leading exponent of a polynomial is called its degree. So with respect to the first polynomial, exponent of the polynomial is 20. With respect to the second polynomial, exponent of the polynomial is 4. The largest exponent of a polynomial is called its degree. Assume that you have two polynomial a of x and b of x with some terms. Summation of these two polynomial is a of x plus b of x is equal to summation of all the terms of a of x and b of x. To understand this, let us take these two polynomial a of x and b of x. Here a of x is having 3 terms and second polynomial b of x is having 4 terms. So we'll see how to perform the addition of two polynomial. So if you wanted to perform the addition of two polynomial, you have to compare the exponent of the first polynomial with the corresponding exponent of a second polynomial. Here exponent of the first polynomial, first term of the first polynomial is 20. Exponent of the first term of the second polynomial is 4. So 20 is compared with 4. So 20 is greater than 4. So therefore you will add the term from the a of x to the resultant polynomial, say c of x. Let us assume that resultant polynomial is c of x is equal to 3 into x to the power of 20. Then you remove this term. After adding the term from the respective polynomial to a resultant polynomial, then you remove the term, because that term should not be considered for the next iteration. Then next consider the term from the first polynomial. Now this becomes the first term of the first polynomial. So now compare the exponent. Here it is exponent is 5. 5 is compared with 4. So now again the exponent, the term with the exponent 5 is going to be added to the resultant polynomial. Then you remove that term from the first polynomial. Now exponent of this term of a polynomial is 0. 0 is compared with 4. 0 is compared with 4. So now this becomes the leading exponent. Then you remove this and you add x to the power of 4. Then again 10x to the power of 3 will be added. Then again 3x to the power of 2 will be added. So now you compare the exponent of this polynomial with the exponent of this polynomial. Now both the term exponent is 0, exponents are equal. if the exponents are equal, then add the coefficient of those two polynomial. It is 4 plus 1, 5. 5 into x to the power of 0. Now let us see how to represent the polynomial. That is how actually you are going to store the terms of a polynomial. You know, each and every term of a polynomial will be having three things in it. So one is coefficient, another one is variable, and third one is exponent. You know, the variable is a commonly available thing with all the terms of the polynomial, that is x. So that's why we are not going to store x into a memory. We are going to store only two things into a memory with respect to a polynomial. So that is degree and a coefficient. You are going to store degree and a coefficient with respect to a first method. There are two methods are available to represent the polynomial. Representation means to store the polynomial inside a memory. The first method is looks like this. So here define the maximum number of maximum degree of a polynomial. Here maximum degree of a polynomial, here we assume that 100. Then type def int degree. Degree means leading exponent of polynomial is called its degree. Then coefficient, you are going to store the coefficient. With respect to the first method of a polynomial, we are storing only the degree and a coefficient, and then you declare a polynomial. So what is the size of a variable a here? As you already studied in the previous session, that size of the structure variable is purely depends on the number of structure members and its type. So here first structure member is degree of type integer, so it requires 2 bytes, plus second member of this structure is coefficient of type float, and it's an array of size 100. So 100 into 4, 400. 400 plus 2, it is 402. The size of a becomes 402. So this is how we can store the terms of a polynomial by using the first method. Okay, as I already mentioned that there are two methods to represent a polynomial. So this is the first method. Now let us see how the terms of the polynomials are going to be stored by using a first method to represent the polynomial. So a dot degree is equal to n. Degree means leading exponent of a polynomial. A dot coefficient of I is equal to a n minus I. In this representation, we store the coefficient in order of decreasing exponent. So anyhow, terms of the polynomials are represented in the decreasing exponent only, such that a dot coefficient of I is the coefficient of x to the power of n minus I. Here x is a variable, n is the leading exponent, I is an index, provided a term with an exponent n minus I exists. Otherwise, we are going to store the 0 in the coefficient field of a given polynomial. You know, in the previous representation, there will be two fields inside a block. One is a degree, another one is a coefficient. Degree is the leading exponent of a polynomial, and in the coefficient, you are going to store the corresponding value if the term with the given coefficient exists. Otherwise, if the term with the given coefficient is not exist, then you are going to store a value 0. There are some disadvantage with this first method. So we'll discuss the disadvantage by taking one simple example in the next slide. Let us consider this. A of x is equal to 3 into x to the power of 20 plus 2x to the power of 5 plus 4. There are three terms in this polynomial. So these, now let us see how these terms are going to be stored by using this method. So you know, as I already mentioned that the total bytes of memory allocated to a structure variable is equal to the number of structure members and its type. Here there are two members, and type of the first member is integer and type of the second member is float. So now, as you already know that there is total 402 bytes is going to be allocated. See here, the maximum degree value is 100. Since it is a floating point number, coefficient of 100, then there will be 100 location of type float. Size of each location is 4 bytes. 4 into 100, 400 plus 2 bytes, 402 bytes with the name A. So now in this, there will be two fields. Inside A, there will be two fields. One is degree of size 2 bytes. Size of this field is 2 bytes. And another one is coefficient. Here it is coefficient of size 400. Size of this is 400. So the size of this entire block is 402. 400 plus 2, 402. And this coefficient field is again divided into 0 to 99. Since it is an array, coefficient is an array, it will divide into 100, ranging from 0 to 99, 0 to 99, etc. up to 99. And then see here how actually these polynomials are going to be stored. As I already mentioned that only the coefficient and exponents are going to be stored. So starting with an index 0, in the index 0, so 3 is going to be stored here. Index 0, 3 is going to be stored here. As you know that the formula is in the previous slide, you have a formula. With that formula, 3 is going to be stored here. So now next term is degree is 20. So degree is 20. 20 minus I is 20 only. In the 0th location, the coefficient of 20 is going to be stored. Coefficient of 20 is 3, that's going to be stored. And there is no coefficient for the degree 19. So therefore 0 is stored. There is no coefficient for the degree 18. Like this, it will keep storing 0. So how the first method is going to store the polynomial, terms of the polynomial? Coefficient of the term with the given degree is going to be stored. If the coefficient of a given degree is not available, then it store a value 0. So therefore the major disadvantage of a first method is that it will simply store the value 0, and a lot of the locations will be get wasted by storing a value 0. The element with the value 0 is of no use, so therefore it's going to waste the space. Initial version of p-add function, polynomial addition function, that is by using a polynomial is represented by using the first method. So here resultant polynomial is d, and given polynomials are a and b. You're going to add the terms of these two polynomial, and resultant polynomial is going to be stored into a variable d. So initially we'll assign a value 0. That number of terms in the polynomial d is 0. No terms in the polynomial d. Before adding the terms of polynomial a and polynomial b, you have to check whether the polynomial a and polynomial b is having more than one term, or is having a terms, more number of terms, more than 0 terms. So E0 function will check whether the polynomial a is having more than 0 terms, polynomial b is having more than 0 terms. Of course, in our case, a is having 3 terms, polynomial b is having 4 terms. So here the control comes inside a loop. So if any one polynomial term becomes 0, it will comes out from the while loop, because E0 function will return true if there is no polynomial. If there is a polynomial, or if there is a term in the polynomial, then it will return false. It's not 0. So now it will compare the leading exponent of this polynomial is 20, leading exponent of this polynomial is 4. So leading exponent function will gives you 20, and leading exponent of b will gives you 4. So 20 and 4 will send to a function compare. So compare function will compare these two value, first parameter and second parameter. If the first parameter, that is leading exponent of the first polynomial, is greater than the leading exponent of the second polynomial, then it will return a value 1. If the leading exponent of a first polynomial is less than the leading exponent of the second polynomial, then it will return a value -1. If the values are equal, then compare function return value 0. Compare function will compare two values. What are those two values? Leading exponent of first polynomial and leading exponent of second polynomial. If the first value is greater than second value, it will return 1. If the first value less than the second value, then it will return -1. If both are equal, then it will return a value 0. So in our case, first value is 20, second value is 4. So first value is greater than second value. So therefore, compare function will return a value 1. So therefore, it goes to the case 1. case 1. That means you have to add the term from the first polynomial to the resultant polynomial. So you'll call the attach function. First parameter is the resultant polynomial where you want to add a term. So to the polynomial d, it's going to add the term of a first polynomial. Term means what? Coefficient and exponent. Coefficient of what? Coefficient of a with that leading exponent, and it will add the leading exponent. That is, first it will add 3, this parameter will add 3, and this parameter will add 20 to the polynomial d. That will take care by the attach function. Then after that, after adding the term, you have to remove the term. So a is equal to remove, that is, term from the polynomial a will be get updated. For the next iteration, there will be only 2 terms. So again it will go back to the while loop, and again it will check whether there is any polynomial become 0. No. So it will go to the switch statement, compare leading exponent of a. Now leading exponent of a becomes 5 because this term is removed. Leading exponent of a becomes 5, and leading exponent of b is still 4. So 5 and 4 will send to a function compare. So once again, the first value is greater than the second value, it will return 1. This term will be added to a resultant polynomial, and this term is also removed from the polynomial a with this statement. And again it goes back to here, and it will compare. Yeah, of course, still we have a terms in a as well as b. It will try to get the leading exponent of a now. At this point of time, leading exponent of a is 0 because these two terms are already removed. Leading exponent of this is 0. 0 comma leading exponent of this is 4. 0 comma 4. So first value is less than the second value. So therefore the compare function will return -1. So it will goes to the case -1. Case -1. Now which term will be added? The term from a polynomial b will be added to a resultant polynomial. This statement will add the term from the polynomial b to the resultant polynomial, and that added term will be removed. That is, x to the power of 4 will be removed now. So then next, again it goes back to the while loop, and again it will check leading exponent of first polynomial is 0, leading exponent of second polynomial is 3. So again compare function will return -1. Then 10 to the power of 10 into x to the power of 3 will be added to d, that is also removed. And in the next iteration, 0 and 2, again it goes to case 3, and 3 into x to the power of 2 will be added to a resultant polynomial. This term also removed. Then finally the while loop, again it comes to the switch. So leading exponent of first polynomial is 0, leading exponent of second polynomial is also 0. So therefore compare function will return a value 0. Compare function will return a value 0. So by this time it will add the coefficient. Coefficient of a polynomial a is 4. Coefficient of a polynomial b is 1. 4 plus 1, it becomes 5. So sum is equal to 5 now. Suppose if you get a sum as 0, do nothing. So otherwise, if it is non-zero, go inside a loop and you have to add that summation to a resultant polynomial. So attach sum to a resultant polynomial d, and you can add a exponent of any one of these two polynomials because exponent is same as a as well as b. With these two terms, exponent is same. So here either you can write leading exponent of a or you can write leading exponent of b. Then you have to remove the terms from both the polynomial now. Remove the term from this statement will remove the term from the polynomial a. This statement will remove the term from the polynomial b. So then again after the break, again it goes to here. Now terms of the polynomial a is also 0. So terms of the polynomial b is also 0. So E0 function will return true. So not of true is false, that is 0. 0 and 0 is 0. It will come out from the while loop. So that means if any one polynomial term becomes 0, in this example both the polynomials term becomes 0, but there are some situation where any one polynomial terms can be 0 and you have still some more terms in the other polynomial. If that is the case, then also it will come out from the while loop. By that time you have to insert remaining terms either from a or from b into a d. If both are become 0 together, do nothing. If one polynomial becomes 0 and you have some terms in the other polynomial, so By that time, insert any remaining terms of a or b into d. This is how this polynomial addition function works. This is the another method to represent the polynomial. You know the disadvantage of a first method that is used to represent the polynomial, that is to method to store the terms of a polynomial. So here we are going to declare a structure because the type of exponent and type of coefficient may be different, but in this case we are using only the integer, but you can use floating point number as a coefficient while represented in terms of the polynomial. Here with respect to this method, we are going to store the coefficient and exponent. So here polynomial terms of max term, here maximum number of terms you can have in a polynomial is 100. So the size of the variable term, array term, is equal to the number of structure members and its type. There are two structure members, coefficient and exponent. Size of the first one is 4, size of the second one is 2. 4 plus 2 is 6. So how many such terms? 100 such terms are available. Each term requires 6 bytes. So 60 to 100, total 600 bytes of memory is allocated with respect to this method. So the main advantage of this method is that if the terms are exist, then you store the coefficient and exponent of the given term. If the terms are not exist, then you store nothing. But with respect to the previous method, if the terms are exist, then you store the term. If the term with the given exponent is not exist, then you are storing a value 0. That's not in this case. Here we are storing only the existing terms. So here we are using one more variable called as avail. So avail is a variable. It is pointing to the next available location. Initially it is 0. So there are two terms here, coefficient and exponent. So this is an array. So name of this array is terms. So and along with that we are maintaining some more variables. Start a indicates starting of polynomial a. Finish a is the ending of polynomial a. Start b is the beginning of polynomial b. Finish b is the end of polynomial b. And avail is always pointing to the next available location. So look at this diagram. This is the representation of a polynomial by using a second method, that is array of structure. The first method is array inside a structure. Second method is array of structure. Here the term of a first polynomial a is 2 x to the power of 2 into x to the power of 1000. So here first you will store a coefficient. 2 is a coefficient. Then you will store an exponent. So that's the beginning of a first polynomial. Then second term is 1 into x to the power of 0. Coefficient is 1. Exponent is 0. This is the end of the first polynomial. Next, this is the beginning of the second polynomial, that is b. Coefficient is 1, exponent is 4. Here coefficient is 10, exponent is 3. Coefficient is 3, exponent is 2. Coefficient is 1, exponent is 0. This is after this term, that is the end of the second polynomial. Then avail is always pointing to the next available location. So this is how we can avoid of wastage of space by using the second method. This is the polynomial addition function by using the second representation or second method to represent a polynomial. So as I already mentioned that here we are using some extra variables, like start a is pointing to the beginning of the first polynomial, finish a is pointing to the ending of a first polynomial, start b beginning of the second polynomial, finish b ending of the second polynomial, start d is the beginning of the resultant polynomial, finish d is the ending of the resultant polynomial. So as I already mentioned that avail is always pointing to the next available location. You have to keep storing the terms of the resultant polynomial from the next available location. So first you have to check whether the terms from the first polynomial and terms from the second polynomial exist or not. That means to perform the addition, you initially you must have the terms from the first as well as the second polynomial. If the terms from the any one of the polynomial is become 0, then you have to come out from the while loop. As long as you have a terms from both the polynomial, you keep inside this while loop. So here start A is pointing to the beginning of the first polynomial, finish A is pointing to the ending of the first polynomial. Start A must be either less than or equal to the finish B, means you have a terms in the first polynomial, and start B is less than or equal to finish B, means you have a terms in the second polynomial. As long as you have a terms from the first as well as the second polynomial, so while loop is evaluated as true, then you compare the leading exponent of a first polynomial with the leading exponent of a second polynomial. How to access the leading exponent? So leading exponent of the first polynomial will be accessed with the statement terms. Terms is a array. Terms is an array which contains the terms of the polynomial. Inside our array terms you have exponent as well as the coefficient. So you have to access, or you have to retrieve the exponent of a polynomial, leading exponent of a polynomial. So start A, that is first polynomial. So leading of start A is pointing to the beginning of the first polynomial. Start A dot exponent means it will gives you the leading exponent of the first polynomial, and this statement will gives you the leading exponent of the second polynomial. So those two things will be sent to the compare function. So compare function will return either 1, 0 or -1. If it returns 1, means leading exponent of the first polynomial is greater than the leading exponent of the second polynomial. If that is the case, you have to attach the term from the first polynomial to the resultant polynomial, and you have to discard the term by increasing the start A. So start A plus plus means start A is pointing to the next term. That is, for the next iteration, the term what you have added to the resultant polynomial should not be considered. For that, I will increment a start A plus plus. If it is equal, add the term from the first polynomial to a resultant polynomial. If it is 1, if it is -1, that means when it will return a -1, leading exponent of the first polynomial is less than the leading exponent of the second polynomial. If that is the case, you have to add the term from the second polynomial to the resultant polynomial. So by that time you have to increment a start B. If it is 0, means leading exponent of the first polynomial and leading exponent of the second polynomial both are equal. If that is the case, you have to add the coefficient of first with the second and store that into a variable coefficient. Check whether it is 0. If it is 0, do nothing. You discard the terms from A as well as B. If it is non-zero, you attach that coefficient to a resultant polynomial and increment start A and start B. So start A and start B will be get incremented to discard the terms what you have added to the resultant polynomial. So these are the statements which are present outside the while loop. As I already mentioned that as long as you have a terms in the first as well as the second polynomial, that means if the terms are available in the first polynomial as well as the second polynomial, then you be there inside a while loop and take a appropriate action. So once the terms of any one polynomial becomes empty, then it will come out from the for loop, and it will check which polynomial terms are empty. So if the start A is less than or equal to finish A, means you have a terms in a first polynomial. If that is the case, you have to attach all the terms of the first polynomial to a resultant polynomial. Anyhow, term from the second polynomial is already becomes 0. If this is not true, means term from the first polynomial is 0. That means there is no terms in the first polynomial. So it will check the terms of the second polynomial. If there is no terms in the first polynomial and still you have some terms in the second polynomial, then you have to attach the remaining terms of the second polynomial to a resultant polynomial. So after that, you have reached the end of the resultant polynomial. So therefore, you have to make finish D pointings to next location available -1. That is, finish D must be pointing to the last position of the resultant polynomial. So avail is always pointing to the next available location. 1 less than the next available location means the ending of a resultant polynomial. So we have used a attach function in the previous function what you have studied to add a two polynomial. So the job of the attach function is to add the terms either from the polynomial A or from the polynomial B to a resultant polynomial depending upon the condition. So before adding the terms, first you have to check whether the free locations are available in the array term or not, because we have assigned a value 100 to a variable max term means you can have maximum of 100 terms in an array including both a, b as well as the resultant polynomial. So anyhow already we have stored a given polynomial a and given polynomial b. We are adding the terms of polynomial a and polynomial b to a resultant polynomial. Even after adding the terms of the resultant polynomial, it should not cross 100 terms. So suppose if the AVIL is greater than maximum terms, by that time you have to print an error message to a file stderr. F stands for file. Fprintf means file. You are printing a message to a file. Which file? Stderr file. Too many terms in a polynomial, and then program will be terminated. Otherwise, if there is a free location, then you have to receive the coefficient of a term you wanted to add from the attach function, sorry, addition function and exponent. You have already received coefficient as well as the exponent from the uh, padd function. Those terms will be added to a resultant polynomial, that is available coefficient. Available dot coefficient is equal to coefficient. So available dot exponent is equal to exponent. Then you have to make the available or avail to point things to the next location. Sparse matrices, you know, as all of you know that matrix is a two-dimensional array. Matrix is a two-dimensional array which consists of n number of rows and m number of columns. So let us consider these two matrices. The first matrix consists of 5 rows and 3 columns. Second matrix consists of 6 rows and 6 columns. See, the problem with the initial version of a matrix is that, so if the matrix consists of elements with a value 0, so here in this case in the first array all the elements are non-zero elements, and second array there are so many elements with a entry 0. So matrix with a more number of entries 0 is called as sparse matrix. Sparse matrix is a matrix which consists of more number of zeros in it. So as you know that the element with the value 0 is of no use, so it is better to avoid the value or the elements with a value 0. For that you are going to make use of a method called as a row column value method. Row column value method. You know the disadvantage of a sparse matrix is that sparse matrix is a matrix which contains more number of zeros in it, more number of zeros entries in it. So for that here we are going to solve that problem. Storing a non-zero value can be solved by using a method called as row column value. Row column value. So this is the method to store the elements of the sparse matrix. Column, number of columns in that matrix. Row, number of rows in that particular matrix, and value means the elements with the non-zero elements are going to be stored by using a row column value. This is an example. So this is the given sparse matrix. This is the given sparse matrix. That matrix will be represented with the row column value like this. So row column value. So in this sparse matrix, in this row column value method, first row is reserved for the number of rows, number of columns, and number of non-zero elements. Non-zero elements are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. In this given sparse matrix, we have 8 non-zero elements. So you are going to store only the non-zero elements so that you can save the space. So here number of rows are 6. Number of columns are 6. Number of non-zero elements are 8. So where is the first non-zero element is present? First non-zero element is present in the first row and first column. Zeroth row and zeroth column. So row 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So here also it is some printing mistake. It is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So don't consider it as a 1. Column number 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Row number 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So where is the first non-zero element is present? First non-zero element is present in the 0th row and 0th column. So therefore 0th row, 0th column we have 15. And then next is present in the 0th row and third column. 0th row and third column we have 22. Next 0th row and 5th column we have minus 15. So like that way, next element is in first row and first column is 11. Next one is first row, second column is 3, and minus 6 is present in second row, third column, 91 is present in fourth row, zeroth column, and then 8 is present in the fifth row and second column. 28 is present in the fifth row and second column. So like this way, you can represent the sparse matrix without storing a non-zero entries in it. In this way, you can save the space. You can save the space. So this is called as a transpose matrix. So transpose matrix will be used in some of the situations in the programming language. So transpose matrix means you just interchange the rows and column values. Rows and column values. So look at this diagram. You have row values in the ascending order. Row values ascending order. It's called as a row major matrix. There are some situation where you need a column major matrix. That means this column value must be in a ascending order. That can be done by transposing this matrix. Transposing means interchanging the rows and column values. Interchanging the rows and column values. So you look at the number of elements in the zeroth column. Zeroth column. So how many elements in the zeroth column? 1 and 2. 1 and 2. So interchange these two now. So zeroth row, zeroth column 15, and next element in the column 0 is 91. You interchange these two value. So zeroth row, fourth column, it becomes 91. Then you identify the number of elements in the first column. First column, there is only one element in the first column. You interchange the rows and columns value. First row, first column, it becomes 11. Then identify the number of elements in the second column. So how many number of elements in the second column? Two elements, 3 and 28. 3 and 28 is present in the second column. So interchange the values of rows and column. So here 2 comma 1 is 3 and 2 comma 5 is 28. So like this way you keep repeat this until all the elements of a particular column will be get exhausted. So now we will get a transpose of a given matrix. How to get the transpose of a given matrix? So transpose of a given matrix can be obtained by interchanging the rows and column values. For that, you have to identify the elements in the particular column. Elements in the particular column. Here, start with the column number 0. There are two elements in the column number 0, that is 15 and 91. So therefore, interchange the row and column value. Column and row value. 0, 0 becomes 15. So here, column value 0 becomes the row value in the transpose matrix, and row value 4 becomes the column value in the transposed matrix. So elements in the 0th column is over. Then identify the elements in the first column, elements in the first column, and elements in the second column, elements in the third column. So there is no element in the fourth column, then elements in the fifth column. So then you will get a transpose matrix. Transpose of a sparse matrix. This function will teach you how to get a transpose matrix from the given sparse matrix represented using row column value method. This function is returning nothing. Name of the function is transpose, and it will take two parameters. One is a given sparse matrix represented in row column value method, and term B is a resultant transposed matrix. Here I am declaring some of the variables of type integer. N represent the number of elements. I and j are an index variable, and also current B is also an index variable. N represent the number of elements. Number of non-zero elements is available in A of 0 dot value. And note, in the transposed matrix, column value of a given matrix becomes a row value, and row value of a given matrix become a column value, and value is equal to n. If n greater than 0, that means number of elements in the given matrix must be greater than 0, and current B is equal to 1. Current B is an index variable to a transposed matrix. It is pointing to the first row. Why? Because 0th row is reserved for number of rows, number of columns, and number of non-zero elements. Actual elements are going to be stored from row number 1 of a transposed matrix. That's why current B is equal to 1. Then for I is equal to 0, 0 less than A of 0 dot column, obviously it is not 0. Why? Because A of 0 dot column is having number of columns value. Obviously it is not 0. So 0 less than this condition becomes true. And That means I am taking the elements from the column 0. Column 0 elements will be identified. So now j is equal to 1, j less than or equal to n, j represent the column here. So column value. So a of j dot column will gives you the column value. Suppose if that is equal to 0, if that is the 0th column element, if that element is belongs to 0th column, then interchange. Column value becomes row value becomes column value, and then value is going to be stored into a valued position of the transposed matrix. Then current B plus plus. So after storing a row value, column value by interchanging and the value element in the value field, then you have to increment the current B to the next row. So identify the element of the 0th element. So like this it will repeat until all the elements are considered and it is stored into a transposed matrix. It's stored into a transposed matrix. So today's session we discussed about the polynomials, how to represent a polynomial. To represent a polynomial there are two methods, and you know the disadvantage of a first method, and also we discussed about how to overcome that disadvantage by using the second method. We have studied two polynomial addition function, one with respect to initial version, that is with respect to the first method, another one is with respect to the second method. Then we have seen how to represent the sparse matrix by using row column value method, and also you have seen how to get a transpose matrix for the given sparse matrix. Thank you.